This picture up here, I don't know if you guys can see it. On your cell phone, do you guys have a picture on the front page of your cell phone? This is the one I've had on mine for, I don't know, the last year or so. So this is a person who's getting older, and he says, "Hey people, one day I will make something amazing happen." And then he's in the ground, and finally a flower pops up. And the whole purpose of this is we all know people who talk and say they're going to do something. We want to be people who do contribute, who help make something happen. We have an opportunity here. There are 17,000 kids in the Arizona foster care system. So Becky and I started foster care in 2008. There was 10,000 kids, and it had been stable for a while. Every year, for the last 7 years, it's been going up 1,000 kids a year. There's 17,000 kids. Problem with that? There's 3,500 foster homes. So there's not enough homes for these kids. So if there's no foster homes, the kids go into group homes. Group homes fill up pretty quick, then they go into shelters. Shelters aren't the best place for kids, and the shelters fill up. So Becky and I, we've known this has been happening. This is an article hit the news last November. We know this has been happening for years. It's not CPS anymore, now it's called DCS, but the kids are sleeping in DCS offices. So we saw communication probably a month ago, goes out to the network of foster families we know. Hey, there's 30 kids down at the DCS office, who wants to go pick up a kid? And they're not puppies, these are kids, right? These are human beings that need love and nurturing, and it's a huge problem. There's this big disconnect we have going on. Okay. Than just a single foster home could. So we started this a few years ago. We had this long-term vision to help out. Picture 40 acres with multiple homes on it. In each one of these homes, we bring in a bunch of kids, 10 kids per home. Homes, that's 100 kids we could help. What we found though, starting this a few years ago, is nobody wanted to give us a loan, nobody wanted to, donate property, a 40-acre piece of property. And what we're learning now, if you go to the next slide, is we need to prove out the model. We don't want to run this like a typical group home. We want to have dedicated parents, dedicated adult figures in these kids' lives to pour into them. So this picture is just a picture off the internet, but the important part is there's grass there, there's a pool, and there's a trampoline. What we've already seen at Happy Acres, the kids we've brought in, when they walk out, first of all, they get to walk out the back door. Most group homes, you can't even walk out the back door. They can walk out the back door at Happy Acres, and there's grass, and there's a trampoline, and there's a pool. And these kids are shocked, because other group homes don't have that. They can't do that. Most of the group homes we're competing with are for-profit, and they keep the staff ratios as tight as they can so they can maintain their profitability. We want to reach kids, we want to help them. So we have a trampoline, we have a pool, kids can go out back. And that's important to us to be able to nurture these kids, not just have a system where we're piling kids in. Took us a while, but we got our 501c3 back in 2013. Last year we started the licensing, zoning, contract procurement process with the state, the county, the city, and March 9th we received our license and our beds are full. So from the time we got our first placement, which was a little over a month ago, until the beds were all filled up was a couple days. Right now we get 3 to 10 calls a day from CPS, from DCS now, asking if we have more room. So last night I was over at Happy Acres, phone rings, pick up the phone, and this is a hard call to take. Hi, this is Jim, Happy Acres. Hey, this is DCS, do you have any open beds? And I have to say, no, our beds are full. And it's not just once, this is like over and over again, all day, every day that this is going on. We want to be able to help more kids. I hate this phrase, it's not fair, because I think people use it without perspective. What I'm going to tell you, and you guys all know me, so what I'll share with you, it's not fair that I share it. There's 4 precious girls that are just amazing in my life, and they each have an incredible story, and it's their story. It's not my story to share, it's theirs. They're not old enough to understand their story yet, but someday Becky and I will be able to share this story with them. Some of these girls are short, some are tall, blonde, brunette. These are my daughters. They have no blood connection. They have no relational, biological connection at all. But they're amazing sisters. They play together, they fight together, they laugh together. They're sisters. It's an incredible sisterly bond they have. Something else they have in common, they've all been in the hospital. I'm not talking, pretty Phoenix children, flowers on the wall. One of these little girls spent 3 months at county hospital in the intensive care unit. And when there is no dad and mom is in prison, there's nobody to go love on this little girl every day. There's nurses that are there for their staff. Staff comes through on their shift, but there's one of those little girls, 3 months. Every one of these girls has spent at least a month of their life in an intensive care. So it's not fair. They didn't cause that to happen. It was back to somebody who was supposed to be responsible for them, either hurt them or neglected or failed to protect them. And that's the problem. They're good kids, but they've been through a lot. And that's what we find with every kid we ever meet in foster care. Right? A lot of these kids don't end up in foster homes, right? So what happens to these kids when they remain in a bad environment and don't get pulled? You guys know the news last year, see not getting the help they need, or they get put into a shelter for years. That's the kind of kids HACH is taking in right now. We're taking in teenagers who are either new to the system because they've been in a bad environment, or they had been removed years ago and were living in shelters or group homes or on the streets. Okay? It's different from other group homes. The first thing, we're a Christian organization. Happy Acres kids. Take a 16-year-old that sex, drugs, violence, criminal history. When they hit that severance place, they don't go to an adoption case plan. They go to what's called long-term care. They're not adoptable. So imagine you're talking to a 16-year-old who knows that the society, the judges, the court, the state, county, whoever, you're not adoptable. You don't get an adoption case plan. You get a long-term care case plan. Okay, so we're Happy Acres children's people. Go to the next slide. We can sit down with them and say, hey, have you ever heard of Romans 8:15? It's a really cool verse. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you received the spirit of adoption. Society may not want to adopt you, but God does. And these kids, it doesn't sink in the first time, but you keep working on that. Hey, Romans 8:15, remember that? And then they read it, and it talks about being an heir. They don't know what an heir is. These kids have been living on the streets. As a Christian group home, I feel very comfortable sharing that with these kids. And after a few times, you just look at them and say, Romans 8:15, and their face changes, because it means something to them. They're not a long-term care case plan. They're a kid that can be adopted. And that means something to them. Different staff. We don't want to be staffed like other group homes. We do not want to have minimum wage employees on 8-hour shifts. That's what most group homes have. In order for us to do that, we want to be able to hire better employees, which is more money. And we also want the staffing ratio to be enough that we can let kids go out back. If there's one employee, maxed out, and everybody's locked in the house, you can't let anybody go out back. So we want to be able to staff it to support that. The facility, Bob and I were just talking about this. We want a home that's nice. Policies. Okay. Most group homes, every kid gets frisked on the way in and on the way out every time. Now, we are hoping we don't have to go to that. There's some kids that we do have to search because of their situation. We want to get to the point, though, where we can build up that trust, build up that relationship, so we don't start out frisking them all the time. So what do we need? We need prayer. The spiritual situation of these kids is rough. These kids have been on the streets. They've been living in sheds. They've been raped. They've been beat up. They've been on more drugs than you could ever imagine. Criminal record. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. Lots of probation. Prayer is an absolute need for the spiritual battle that's going on with these kids. Qualified employees, if you guys know people who want to get a job, a very challenging job, but have the heart to help these kids, we're absolutely looking for qualified people to work there. Funding. The funding situation we have, we don't have enough money to run it. So most of this has been board funded. We have been getting donors from other people, but we have a huge funding gap. Professional services, our biggest expense for years was the accountant. The nonprofit accountants, like $200-300 an hour. Fortunately, we've had pro bono architects and pro bono lawyers, but Professional services are a big deal, and they have to have it. We can't just not file with the IRS. You have to do that stuff. Volunteers. We need volunteers. We need people who can take a kid to the doctor. Even volunteers have to go through the same background checks, fingerprints, all that, as an employee. But we need that help. We're stretched very thin, and every one of these kids has doctor appointments and therapist appointments and court cases and all kinds of needs. Specific articles of clothing. Even most kids don't show up with anything. The kids that do show up with stuff don't have underwear or socks. Girls with one bra. Right now we're between 11 and 16 boys and girls, so that's the range. That body spray, they go through a lot of that. Shampoo, unbelievable how much, like a gallon of shampoo I think in the first couple weeks. I don't know what they're doing with it all, but it goes. Toilet paper, memberships. We'd love to take these kids to the zoo or the science museum, and it costs just as much. It's about the same for us to buy an annual membership for the whole home as it costs to take all these kids one time. That's a great sponsorship opportunity for people. The kids, some of these kids are enrolled in the local school. There's constantly the camps and the field trips opportunities. Races. We have, with the state, comprehensive medical and dental plans for these kids. We don't pay a copay, we take them to the dentist, but it doesn't cover braces. And some of these kids' teeth are pretty messed up. So that's another sponsorship type opportunity. $5,000 a month gap right now between the subsidy that the state supplies and what our expenses are. So we have an opportunity for 100 individuals, families, whatever, to go to our webpage, and there's a one-time donation or a reoccurring donation. So FAM stands for 50 a month. We're looking for 100 people. You get this awesome supporting the first FAM house. These are cool. They don't want these.